Hi guys, so I just thought to do a quick video on how the Walstad tank's getting on. Sorry for the glare in the background. Um, but what I want to touch on today is obviously I've dated the tank, haven't I? And there's this critical window when you first start a tank, any tank, like the cycle gets going, and then when the cycle starts finishing, when the nitrates are starting to drop and the nitrates are climbing, what you find is first you'll get like a brown filmus diatom algae, and then after that you'll get a green algae bloom, won't you? Now, in a planted tank, we're going to struggle with this algae, and what goes on with the plants, so like the stem plants, you've got like, if you look there, you can see where that's grown in my water. Now, a lot of stem plants, when we buy them from the shop, they've been grown immersed, haven't they? They've been grown out of water, and you know, they're not set up to grow underwater, so they have to convert, like the likes of these crypts, they're melting the leaves. Now, they've been planted in the soil substrate, haven't they? And all the nutrients are in the substrate, and you know, you can see there's bits of leaves melting back. Now, what's happening is it's converting all its carbohydrates because it's got no roots. So what it needs to do is grow roots, and it needs to grow leaves that will survive underwater. It's, you know, decided that it doesn't live in the same environment anymore, and it's transitioning to live in the new environment. So plants aren't doing the best, and then obviously you've got like an influx of nitrates and phosphates and ions and stuff in the water, and algae are more simple. They're more of a simple organism, so they don't need as much as the plants. So while plants are struggling to establish themselves and they're converting the growing roots, obviously plants don't have credit cards, do they? They can't just go out and invest, so they can only use the energy they've got stored, the carbohydrates they've got stored, to grow new roots. So, and then the soil, it takes about 3 months for the soil to start breaking down properly and releasing the nutrients and the carbon dioxide for the plants to take it up. And then while this is going on, the algae can outcompete the plants for the nutrients in the water. They've got an unfair advantage, but we can fight back dirty. Check this out, right? So the crypts, if you look down there, there's a little leaf coming out. Can you see it? I didn't plant that. And then there's another one, just see if I can focus. See there? So there's crypts that are starting to come up. So obviously there's something going on under the soil with the crypts. They're starting to send out stuff. But yeah, we're starting to get little bits of algae on things, and I'm thinking, like, we can fight back dirty. You know what? Right. And we can use natural things to tackle algae. Like, first of all, we've got the floating plants, haven't we? We've got the salvinia. Like, there's a lot of lipids on the surface at the moment, which is stopping oxygen and CO2 getting into the column. So I need to remove some of this. But what they're doing is they're out competing the algae for stuff, the free floating nutrients in the water. I've just ordered some water lettuce. I've never owned water lettuce, so I want to give it a go. But like, all this salvinia is going nuts because it's absorbing all the nutrients in the water. And then, as I say, all this is getting going. This is getting used to my water, because water isn't just water, is it? You know, like on a basic level, we can test the TDS, and the TDS will give you a different, like some TDS are less than 100 in soft water, and in hard waters have got like 300-400 TDSs. But that doesn't mean nothing, because it could all be magnesium, it could all be calcium, it could, you know, there's tons of different things. It could all be iron or copper, like it could all be KH, it could all be GH. It doesn't tell you what it actually is, and so there's that. Yeah, so what we need to do is we need to get the tank balanced, don't we? But you know, we can fight back dirty, because these algae, they like more of an alkaline condition. And what's going on in a more mature tank is, like the likes of the Amazon swords, the old leaves will break down and they'll release humic acids into the water. Acid, it's non-alkaline. Plants will do better in a natural environment, slightly more acidic than algae, which like it a little bit more alkaline. So we can cheat, can't we? What we could do is we could put some leaves in the tank, and then they'll release some humic acids, like oak leaves or maple leaves, and they'll break down, feed the shrimp, you know, and then stuff will leach into the substrate and feed the soil. That's one thing we could do. We can make the water slightly acidic, just tiny bit more acidic, which will swing the fight in the plant's favour. Yeah, so what we want to be doing is we want to be doing, you know, we want to be giving the plants the chance to fight back with, if we lower the pH, we get a slightly more acidic, it gives the chance to the plants it gives them the advantage. You've got the aerial advantage of, because these can take the CO2 straight from the atmosphere and then they'll outcompete the algae for nutrients. Now, another thing we can do is just start picking at it, like there's little bits of algae here and there, and if we just have little sessions, we could, the old leaves that I've got algae on, we could cut that off and just bin it out the tank and then it's gone. So we just need to manually remove it until, like, plants, we've got allelopathy going on, haven't we? In Diana Walstad talks about it in the book, which is like, the closest thing I can explain is, you know, like, if you get, like, plants can't move, so they've got to fight dirty to keep themselves alive. So what they'll do is produce chemicals, like terrestrial plants will produce like alkaloids. Like, if you think of chili peppers, you know, we come along, we eat a chili pepper, it tells our mouths that, you know, humans are just crazy, aren't they, really, when you think about it? Because they release a chemical in our brain that tells us that our mouth's on fire, which is supposed to put you off, isn't it? It's the plant fighting dirty, but because humans are a bit, you know, crazy, we decide we like it, which is a bit nuts. but yeah, that's the plants fighting dirty. They're producing chemicals, and, you know, plants produce poisons and toxins, don't they? So allelopathy, they release chemicals into the water which inhibit other plants and stuff, and, you know, plants will release it. Like, you find certain plants will release it and they'll never get algae on the leaves because they're producing these, apparently, these algae-paths which inhibit the algae growth. So these are two things we can do once the tank's mature. That's how we get a balanced tank. The plants are growing, they're releasing chemicals which are inhibiting the algae, and like the breakdown of the old plant matter, and, you know, the old tank syndrome, the lowering the KH and stuff, the tank's becoming slowly more acidic over time, and it's giving the algae a harder time surviving. So we just need to fend that off. That's what I like about natural plants. You know, it's a whole system of things going on, and if you can master these techniques rather than doing massive water changes all the time, which is dumping heavy metals into the tank, which in the long term is not very good for certain things in the tank. You know, you're dumping like iron and copper and lead and stuff in your tank, and the plants will absorb that, but, you know, it's not very good for your fish. Whereas these plants are just naturally purifying the water. So this water is better than the water coming out of my tap. So it's just a case of keeping on top of it, and we make a whole system. But the soil as well, I want to talk about the soil. So it takes about 3 months for the soil to start breaking down properly. Let me show you this as well. This is cool. So I don't know whether you can see this in here, but this is the compost we use, and look at that in the corner there. See that? And that's all mycelium. That's mycorrhiza. So that mycelium in the substrate, it's breaking everything down. So it's making, like, all that compost is getting broken down, and the mycelium is presenting it to the roots of the plants as the roots of the plants are growing, and it's making nutrients available for the plants at the substrate, so it's not in the water column. Now, it's important that we keep gravel in our tank. I know Father Fish, I've been watching his videos lately, and he keeps talking about sand and stuff, and he says there's 2 limiting factors to the Walstad method, which, in my opinion, having read the book a couple of times, I think his opinion's wrong on the situation, because he says to use sand, and then he's talking about, like, criticism is anoxic conditions or anaerobic conditions in the substrate. So we use 1 inch of soil and 1 inch of gravel in the Walstad method, and Dustin's fish tank uses the same method, and he says not to do that, to use sand, 2 inches of sand. And the problem with that is we've got the water flow in the tank, and if anyone's kept sand as a substrate, you'll realise everything collects like a mulm collects because nothing can get down there. And if those things can't get down there, guess what? Oxygen's not getting down there. But the plants provide. Plant roots will break this stuff up, but Sand compacts and it makes an anoxic condition or anaerobic condition, and gravel doesn't. Obviously, as the water flows, it'll move through the substrate slowly. There's another green thing, look. Something's coming out the substrate. Things are growing, things are happening. It's exciting. Yeah, so that's it. And then he says also about nutrition getting into the substrate. But the thing is, right, if we feed, this is what I've been feeding. It's herons, it's just flake food, but flake food's got all like the micro and macronutrients that the plants need, and then as I'm feeding it, like all the organisms in the system are eating it and it's breaking down, and then what it's doing is it's dropping down into the substrate slowly, breaking down over time, and it's building more nutrient, more and more nutrient layers for the plant roots. So it's a whole system. Now, I don't think Father Fish understands this because he says it's a limiting factor, and after reading the book, I don't think it is, because we're constantly putting more and more stuff in, whereas he's capping us with sand, so that stuff's not getting down there, so it's becoming anoxic and it's not getting more nutrients in. So these are the things I wanted to talk about with the, getting this system established. We need to get the plants out competing the algae with, and then we could put some oak leaves or maple leaves in to make the water slightly more acidic. So it gives the plants that which are struggling to establish themselves, because they haven't lived in this environment before. Imagine if we move to the top of the mountain where the air's thinner. It takes a period of time, we've heard of the term the bends. We need to adjust to our new life, and so the plants. So they need to grow roots, they need to get it into the substrate and pull up the nutrients, they need to rebalance, because as I said, they haven't got credit cards. They can't just invest stuff, that resources they haven't got. So they have to absorb nutrients, the carbohydrates out the leaves and put out new leaves. So we could start off with a massive crypt and it ends up being a little tiny thing, but it's re-established all its nutrients, it's balanced all its nutrients. Now, people in bonsai will tell you that you can only have one insult per year. So if you do root pruning on your bonsai tree, you have to leave it alone for 12 months. You can't do anything else. You have to let it grow all its new roots. It hasn't got a credit card. It can't invest resources it hasn't got. So it has to rebalance them. And that's another part of a balanced aquarium, is you've got to let the plants adjust to the new environment. Another thing, like when we look at the top, right, we've got like a thing called a meristem, and what that does is it produces oxygen. Now, the oxygen travels back through the plant, and it tells the plant that like this, the oxygen's like, it's racing away. I want to be a bit bigger plant, I want to be a bigger plant, so it's producing. But at all them little junctions, nodes, we've got kind of like basically stem cells. Now, in them junctions, in them stem, like in them nodes, them stems, if we take that, like we could literally just take tweezers and pinch the meristem, like the top bit of the leaf, or like the top new growth off, and now the oxygen will stop being inhibiting the rest of the plant. Now bits down here will go, right, well, there's no oxygen coming back anymore, so I'm not inhibited anymore. So now I'm a meristem and I want to be a root, and it'll send out roots, and then like the leaves will go, well, I don't want to be a leaf anymore. I want to be the new stem. I want to be the new leader, and that'll race off because it's not being inhibited anymore. And that's, plants have got stem cells, and they use these to their advantage. Like we've got like here, we can see like new growth coming out, the Ludwigia. They're the stem cells, and they've decided they want to be, they've got an abundance of nutrients, and they want to be more than just a leaf. They want to be a new stem. Off they go. But we have to get all this balanced, don't we, guys? Anyway, guys, I just thought I'd hit you up with a bit of info. Take care, see you soon.